Eventually, you'll come to accept the idea of being here.
Annie, whatever you think I'm not doing, please don't do it. Annie, for God's...
Shh, darling. Trust me.
God's sake!
It's for the best. God, I love you.
Misery was released in 1990. It's an adaptation of a Stephen King book, which also just so happens to be my favorite book of all time. Directed by Rob Reiner, this one stars James Caan and Oscar winner Kathy Bates, and tells the story of an author named Paul Sheldon. When he's coming back from Colorado after finishing his latest book, he crashes his car during a blizzard. He's rescued by former nurse Annie Wilkes, aka Paul Sheldon's self-proclaimed #1 fan, who takes Paul back to a remote house in the mountains without telling anybody. The problem is that Annie is kinda crazy. Well, she's really crazy actually. And once she finds out about a certain plot point in his latest book, she goes insane. And now we have not only one of Stephen King's best movie adaptations, but one of the best thrillers of all time. Misery is one of the movies that I watch every year around this time in October. I read the book about 2 years ago and I did a project on it. I still remember it. I still remember showing it on the board and then writing on the whiteboard beside it. I don't really remember why, but I think it was just something for me to do. I don't really know, but I've seen the movie now 3 or 4 times, and if you've been subscribed to my channel for as long as it's been going on for, I started in June or July 2018, I had a review of this one about 2 years ago, and it was terrible. I recorded it at like 11:20 at night and said it had to be up before midnight, and I had to still edit it and do all this stuff. It was terrible. I have like the image of like being in my basement and like setting the stuff up on the air hockey table behind me. It was really bad, and if you've been watching my channel since then, I am so surprised you stuck around. There's no point of going back to find that video either. It's been deleted, just by the way. Now, Rob Reiner at the time was just putting out great movies. I'm gonna name the ones I've seen. Stand By Me was the first one, and another Stephen King adaptation, fantastic movie. The Princess Bride is still my favorite of his. And then we had Misery, obviously, and then we had A Few Good Men 3 years later, and I love all of those movies, and The Princess Bride and Stand By Me are both in my top 50 of all time, and I'm kind of pissed because I forgot to put Misery in my top 100 of all time. I forgot about a few movies there. Misery is essentially a thriller masterpiece. Reiner directs us with such a tight and claustrophobic feeling. I almost didn't say that word, claustrophobic. Even when we're shown characters like the sheriff and deputy, there's still a sense that not everything is right. You always have a feeling that something is off, and that's what I love about Misery. Those are just the outside scenes, and I haven't even mentioned this scene, especially scenes, but this one scene in particular where, spoilers, obviously, I'll give you a spoiler warning, is wheeling around the entire house while Annie is out, and then we get this amazing close-up and he's just drenched with sweat. The tension is just built up so well. There's even some foreshadowing in the opening shot, and although I said I prefer Stand By Me and The Princess Bride to this one, just by a little bit, I think that this is Reiner's best directed film. Maybe that's because it's a thriller and you really focus on a director in a movie like this, but I think that. Let's talk about the obvious though. The reason why most people love or remember Misery, Kathy Bates. Kathy Bates is just outstanding here. She won an Oscar and she definitely deserved it. This is one of the best performances I've ever seen, especially in the thriller genre. She's someone who seems all sweet and normal, but there's just these little things and what seems like harmless things that manage to set her off big time. Her performance is so haunting here, and obviously everyone remembers the iconic hobbling scene, but even in that scene there's just something so special. It's the way her voice sounds all nice, or she's explaining what's about to happen, and although that part is different from the book, if you read it in the book, she actually cuts his foot completely off, but in this one she just breaks his ankles. She is just so menacing, but she seems so sweet, and that's what's so haunting about her character. Chris Duckman made a fantastic point, as always, in his review of Misery from 2017, and I'm not going to repeat everything he says, but what I'm about to talk about, just go watch his video and he covers it a lot better. I just don't want to repeat it because it's just weird. But James Caan is almost equally as great as Kathy Bates here. The thing with Paul Sheldon is he's not supposed to be the character or the thing about this movie that you really remember. But for me, he is. Now, obviously, I remember Annie Wilkes more, and I do think that Kathy Bates has a superior performance, but he is just right there, just under her. My favorite scenes are the hobbling scene, the sweat dripping scene, and that finale. James Caan is such a brilliant actor, and this is a performance that no one really talks about when Stephen King movies are mentioned. And I totally get that they're talking about Kathy Bates, but this performance might be in that top 10 of my favorite performances in Stephen King adaptations. This movie is also paced super well. I checked in at what I thought was like half an hour, and it turned out to be an hour into the movie. It absolutely flies by. Maybe that's because I've seen the movie about 3 or 4 times, but there's just such this special quality to it that makes me want to come back and rewatch it every year, and I don't see myself stopping doing that. Sounds a weird way to word it, but that sounds like a weird way to word it, but I can't think of anything else. As I said, I watch it every October and it never gets old. The score is also great, and it was really on my last watch here where I realized how damn good the cinematography is. Reiner does a lot of the show not tell. For example, in this scene where the police are looking for the car, it doesn't show it at first, but as soon as they turn around, the camera pans over. It's such a little detail, but it's just so smart. And another thing I love is that in this movie, you also find out some things as Paul Sheldon is finding them out, like about Annie, as I already mentioned, spoilers, but later on in the movie, we realized she was fired, she was killing all these people as a nurse, and it gets quite brutal, but I love how we aren't told that. It's not even hinted at, but the second Paul Sheldon knows, we know, and we see him reading it. It's brilliant. Misery is one of the best thrillers of all time. Kathy Bates gives one of the best performances I've ever seen, especially in the horror or thriller genre, but almost equally as good is James Caan. Because of Rob Reiner's claustrophobic direction, this one has been elevated to one of the all-time greats of its genre. I'm gonna give Misery an A+. So what's your favorite Stephen King adaptation? My top 3 are The Shining, The Shawshank Redemption, and Stand By Me. This one is definitely up there. It's in the top 5, I think, and I would like to know what's your favorite, what are your top 3, what's the best, what's the worst, anything like that. Next week, I'll be reviewing A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, along with I finally watched this movie. I don't know what this movie will be yet, but it will be a movie I've never seen before, and I'm gonna watch it for the first time and tell you what my first reaction to it will be. Tell me what you think of Misery in the comments down below, and I will see you guys next time. Over and out.